Right, so you left school at 14, is that right?
Yes, 14 years of age was the elementary age in those days, unless you were any special qualification, which when you were to get you to the high school. And that, of course, was the top school in those days.
And you were telling me about your uncle was the chief engineer at Port Clarence. It was alright.
Oh yes.
And that's how you got into the works there.
Yes. Well, at 14 years of age, you could go in and accept an apprenticeship for a trade, you see, and then you had to serve a 7-year apprenticeship to that trade.
So what was the actual title of your apprenticeship when you done your apprenticeship? What would you have been?
What was my title?
Your job title?
Apprentice, roll turner, journeyman roll turner.
Ah, so right. So what was the name of the actual firm you worked for? Was it Port Clarence Steel?
No, the firm at that time was at Port Clarence, and it was Bell Brothers. So Hugh Bell, he had all the blast furnaces, and he also had an American blast furnace there, which uncles of mine were operated on, used the lifts on. The rolling mills and the steel plant were also part of the Hugh Bell combine, but they were run by Dormans, Dorman Lung Company. You see, so that was the whole project as it was in Port Clarence in those days.
Do you have an interview for the job like you do nowadays? Do you have to go for a formal interview with the managers or whatever?
Oh yes, you had to go and see the mill manager, and he questioned you about your intelligence, I should suppose, and whether you had the capabilities to take on an apprenticeship. You've got to have certain capabilities, you know, to take these jobs on.
And sort of an aptitude for the job as well, as they say.
Oh yes.
I suppose with your father being in the works, although he's on a higher level, you must have had some sort of brought up with that sort of like surrounding.
Yes, well, as I say, I had two brothers who went into what they called the stage lab at the steel works, at the melting shops, where my father was at that time assistant steel plant manager, and they went as industrial chemists. But I decided for the apprenticeship as a roll turner, you see.
Right. When you say Port Clarence, was it actual Port Clarence on the other side of the river?
On the other side of the river.
So how did you get to work each morning?
Oh, well, every morning you had to... I used to go at Clive Road corner. I used to buy a twopenny return on the tram, which took you a penny each way to the transporter. Then you crossed over on the transporter itself to the other side, and then you had to walk from there up Clarence Road to the works, which was what? Oh, a good quarter of an hour's walk.
So we're 2 or 3 miles, 2 miles.
Yes, well, you're getting it right near to the bend in the river, out to the Tees Point.
Really?
Yeah.
Quite a long way.
And as I say, there were many times when it used to break down, the transporter, and if the Magdalene wasn't there to take you over, it was a paddle steamer, the Lady Magdalene, and of course you had to climb up the top, over the top and down the bottom. I was seeing it's like a beetle going right over the top. Hundreds of men.
So like a continuous stream going across the top.
Oh yes, it was amazing to say that.
What would cause the transport there? Was it be similar to today, winds or mechanical?
Oh, it's always been the same.
It's always been off and on.
Mechanical, it has the wire hose on, you know, and it's run by an engine and electrically operated. Oh yes.
What type of things would close the transporter down for the day?
Oh, very heavy winds sway it.
So So similar to today.
A breakdown, which you could very often get, or even heavy rains could sometimes affect them. But by and large, it wasn't too bad.
Did it break down often, really, or just occasionally? You say?
Yes, very often you had to go over the top. I've done that many a time. But it wasn't. Normally, you went for probably months before anything happened, you know.
So when you first started at the Bell Brothers at Port Clarence, who was responsible for your instruction? Where did you first go?
Well, for instructions.
You first sort of like a few weeks you were at the job.
Well, of course, immediately when you were accepted by the mill managers of that particular department, you're taken on and put under the instruction of the journeyman, whether it's an electrician or a road turner. You're put in the instruction of them. The foreman takes in charge of you, and he disciplines you.
What was a journeyman? Was that a special title?
Well, you become a journeyman once you leave. You finish your apprenticeship, and you've got to go out for 6 months to another place before you're a qualified man for the job.
So,
fortunately, I hadn't to do that because the place closed down. And I went from there to Darlington Rolling Mills as a journeyman.
See, because you worked at Bell Brothers, so a similar type of thing. You were going
That's
back.
right. Yeah. I went over there.
Did you join with a lot of other apprentices? Was it like a batch of apprentices?
No, nothing like they have today.
No.
No. I think when I went into the works, there was 2 more apprentices. 2 more, yeah, but very not en masse like they do today, looking for jobs.
So I take them once a year, about 50 people now.
Yeah.
So you could say you just when you were ready, sort of thing, at 14, then if they accepted you, just go in, sort of thing.
Oh yes, they take you in as an apprentice, and you go under the control of the foreman of the shop, who allocates your duties, which of course first are making teas and going messages, the usual thing. The usual procedure was that you did all the messages. You were the youngest boy on the job, and you did all the messages, or whatever was wanted doing.
What happened when it came to actually learning the job? What type of things were you doing then?
Oh, you're in the instruction of the foreman, and also you worked with a fully qualified man. You see.
And what type of things were you doing the first year of your apprenticeship?
Rough cutting on lathes, rough cutting and showing how to set a tool up, things like that. And from that, you sort of gradually made strides in the job itself, and learning how to manipulate a tool, and how to side cut and edge off, and what all these little things which happen, and it's all part of the job.
Did you clock on in the morning?
And
Did you clock on
oh yes.
Can you remember your number?
When I first started, I can't remember it at Port Clarence, but I know my number at Britannia was 2913.
2913.
And I had that right through, 2913. I can't remember the Port Clarence one.
What hours were you working as an apprentice this time?
Let's see, 8:04.
Was that 5 days a week?
5 days a week, and Saturday morning.
And Saturday morning?
8 till 12. Oh yes.
Long hours. And how much were you getting paid? You don't mind me asking.
As an apprentice?
Was it good?
Oh, I would think round about 8 or 9 shillings a week when I first started.